Hello everyone, this is Grandmaster Max Illingworth with another video on pawn endgames. And this one is actually, I think, quite an interesting one in that basically this position is winning for white with best play, but in the game black actually got a chance to escape. And one thing as well with pawn endgames is that there are a lot of ways to improve your calculation, mainly involving solving puzzles. But a common technique for improving your calculation is to solve pawn endgame puzzles. And the reason is that in pawn endgames you can basically work out the position to a full conclusion, as in either it'll be a win for white, a draw, or a win for black. And if you saw the previous video on pawn endgames that I recorded, then you'll know that in a pawn endgame every move is very important and very critical, in that just one mistake could already change the result of the game. So, in this position, what would your choice be if you're playing white? You might like to pause the video and calculate this one for a bit, and then compare your thoughts with what we'll look at here. So, in this position, basically the move that white played was the right idea, but I think he played it in the wrong move order, where he started with this move g4, and the reason that g4 is a mistake, well, I could say it, but it could also make a good puzzle. So first of all, before we get to the position after g4, let me show you how white should have played it to win. So at the moment, one problem white has is his king doesn't have an easy way into the black position, and we can't really just go around and create a passed pawn so easily, as black can create counterplay with a move like e4, for instance, once our king gets to a4. So the move white should start with is h3. And the reason that h3 is such a great idea is that we basically want to play g4. But the key difference here is that after king b6 and g4, we can now meet f takes g4 with h takes g4. And in this way, we don't give black a passed pawn, as we would if we had played f takes g4 by comparison. So that means that in this position, white can win basically by just attacking black's weak pawns with his king. So king d6, king f5, and here I think the easiest way to win will be just to play b5, using what Jeremy Silman likes to call the fox and the chicken coop technique, where we can't have this pawn as a decoy to distract the black king, and then when the king has to move away, we can then gobble up the black pawns for an easy win while they're dealing with our passed pawn. So black might try, instead of f takes g4, the move f4, but then white has a really nice idea where you can actually start with g5 in this position, and it turns out I think it's maybe somewhat important to start with g5, because if you play king to e4, for example, then black might try to stop it with h6, and one trick we have to be careful of is that here we can't just take that f6 pawn for free, as it would allow the break through e4, where also in pawn endgames we have to be careful of the tactics, and then here it would actually be black who is winning rather than white. So by playing g5 first, we just make sure that there aren't any tricks. If they play f5, it will allow us to have a decisive passed pawn on the king side, so they do have to take. And then after king e4, our plan is simply to mop up the black pawns by playing king f5 and so forth. And if black tries a similar breakthrough idea to before with g4, well, we can deal with it quite easily by playing king takes f4. And if g takes, we'll simply gobble up the black kingside pawns and easily win with our material advantage. So that's the way for white to play it. If black did try a move such as h5 instead, in that case I believe we could play the move g4 in this position, with the point that if they play h takes, that we can take back, and if takes, then we can probably play h4 and use this sort of h pawn as a sort of breakthrough. So yeah, I think this would be the simplest way for white to win from this position. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe it's more precise to play h4 rather than g4. because after g4 and takes, black might be able to lock up the position with h4 and sort of say that we can't so easily take the f6 pawn because of this e pawn running. So I think the key is to start with h4 and then to play g4. We sort of the same breakthrough idea, but where we're not allowing him to block up the king side in their favour. And clearly black's king is outside the square of this pawn, whereas black's pawns aren't really going to queen in time, where white can stop the g pawn quite easily while this one does a home run. So the short answer is that h3 was the winning move. But how does black draw if white plays g4? And this one, there are kind of two options that I'll give you. Would you play f4 or would you play f takes g4 here? So well done if your move was f takes g4. It turns out this position is actually only a draw, as black can play h6, stopping the g5 idea we saw previously. And it turns out that white can't really win the black pawns as easily as he might have thought, as black uses the fact that white can't play king f6 without allowing the e-pawn to queen. But if white tries h4 and tries to destroy the black pawns this way, the problem is that white will just be a move too slow. Or after f takes g5. If you played h takes g5, you would actually lose to h5. So you always have to be careful of the breakthroughs here. In fact, I do see quite a lot in pawn endgames. This idea that basically after h6 and b5, that black can't really stop both the pawns at once, while white has a perfect blockade of the black connected past pawns. It's one point in pawn endgames that sometimes the far away pawns are actually better than the connected pawns, as only the king can stop one pawn at a time. So after fg5, which is what black should play, we have h takes, and the position ends up being a draw because even though white can pick up the g5 pawn, black will get enough counterplay with g4 and then bring his king in with king e6. And now, quite importantly, he cuts the white king off with king e5. And as black will inevitably win this pawn, he's also in the square of the white pawn if white does try to create a passed pawn, remove like b5. It means that this will just be an ironclad draw here. But instead, black blundered with the move f4. And this allowed white to play king e4. And I mean, the reason black's fate is sealed here is that basically white can simply just sort of destroy the black pawns, where while we still don't have king f5 and king f6 because of the aforementioned e4 breakthrough idea, now the g5 idea does work a lot better for white. After f takes and h takes, it transpires that this pawn ending after h takes and king e5 is just a win, where after g4, it's a desperate attempt, as otherwise white will simply take both the black pawns. So he's trying to break through with g4. But it turns out that this pawn ending is just a pretty simple win for white, where we will be able to outflank the black king. So after king c7, king e4, and king d6, actually there is one final trick that we have to watch out for as white. So what's the move to ensure white's victory here? So well done if your move was king to f5. You see, if you start with king d4, you actually lose the win here, as black has a nice trick of c5. And the point is that if you take, then there's king c6, and you probably already know that this position is a simple draw when the pawn is in front of the king as such. But if you try king c3, it's the same story, where black can take and again have the draw, as white will be forced to move his pawn in front of the king if you want to try and make any progress. But you probably know it's a draw already. So that's why it's important to start with king f5. And in that case, black is simply going to run out of ground for his king. If they try c5, here the difference is we have b5, and we're just going to move our king toward the c5 pawn for a simple win. In the game, black tried king to e7. If he tries king d7, trying to take the diagonal opposition, we can play king e5 and make use of the spare pawn move, as I like to call it, when we have the opposition battle. And we can play c5 and thus force black to give up the opposition. So after king d7, we go king f6, and we just inch our king closer and closer. It gradually becomes apparent that black will lose the c6 pawn after king c8, and black is simply in a fatal zugzwang in this position here. So yeah, basically that's why black tried something else, but he's kind of lost whatever he plays after king e7 and king e5. So in this position, it's best not to start with the move c5. If you did, then black would take the opposition, and as far as I can tell, it would only be a draw when black can stop the white king invading his position. But what we can do is we can play king d6. It doesn't really matter that black can take the opposition, as we have a pawn move to work in our favour, where white played the key move c5 check, and black resigned here, because after king d5, we get in with king e7, and after king c4, we will play king d6 and just grab this pawn. If he tries to defend with king b5, just king c7, and black will have to give up the pawn and thus lose the game. So that was another nice endgame by James Mason against Bertolt English. And we saw a few instructive lessons of the pawn breakthroughs in particular being a key idea and theme in this game. So it's one thing to keep in mind that pawn endgames are also tactical, and you have to keep your eyes open for the opponent's breakthrough ideas and for our own breakthrough ideas as well. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.